As a mother of 5 and living in one of the remotest parts of Australia, Fiona O'Loughlin has pushed past the barriers and become not only a household name in Australia, but her comic genius has been recognised across the world. Good morning, Fiona.
Good morning, Mark Blundell. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to catch up after all this time.
I reckon it's been about 30 years.
In 1983, out of a tin shed in Alice Springs. And my first interview was the woman I've got on the line, and I haven't spoken to her since.
What the hell would I have been talking about 30 years ago? God only knows.
And I remember you telling me that you were from Waruka and your surname was Tahini, and that's it.
Yep. That's all I had.
And next thing you know, you're on Celebrity Apprentice, Dancing with the Stars, you're all over the television. What a meteoric rise to fame.
Yeah, it was not really what I mean, all I really wanted was just a headline in a comedy club. That was my goal. It certainly took me further than I imagined. I'm very glad.
I've read your book, and let me tell you that this has been a fantastic read. It's called Fiona O'Loughlin, Me of the Never Never. And in that book I was reading, you actually started out nursing.
Yeah, I was a nurse before I was a comedian. I often say the lives I've saved giving up that career are countless.
At what point did you decide nursing wasn't for you?
I did have a terrible experience, and I think I wrote about it in the book. I was on my way to turn Mrs. Gershon, who was literally on their very last leg.
Uh-huh.
And I walked in, and the cleaner came out of her room, and she said, "Oh, Mrs. Gershon's just passed away," which is no surprise to anyone. She was nearly 100, this woman, and had been dying for some time. My mistake was to take the cleaner at her word and not check the body myself. And then I had to go and tell the matron, and the matron took me at my word, and it was a terrible chain of events. And she said to me, "Go and straighten up the sheets on the body and comb her hair, because the family might want to say goodbye." And when I went back down to change this, or straighten up the sheets and comb her hair, she breathed.
Oh, no.
Pretty good news for Mrs. Gershon, but very bad news for Nurse Fiona.
Uh-huh.
And I had to go and tell the matron, but by then she had a room full of Gershons in her office, and I had to mime through a crack in the door that, a fabulous mime, that she wasn't dead. And it was... I felt like my nursing career was like I was in a continual episode of Mr. Bean, you know, without the laugh track.
Hence, it was at that time where you thought, maybe nursing's not for me.
Maybe nursing's not for me.
And I've done enough to please Mum.
Yeah.
Now, what's not known about you is before your comic career, you actually fostered 30 children.
Well, not all on the same day, Mark. It sounds... We were Chris and I were respite carers.
Uh-huh.
So where we came in was an emergency stop on, you know, because stuff happens and it's often in the middle of the night, and so we were emergency placements. And so we would have kids come to us, and then Family Youth and Children's Services would try and find them longer term care, and we'd have them in the interim. Typically,
how long would you foster each child for?
Well, the shortest was one night, and the longest was 9 months, I think.
I read in your book you talked about a particular child called Mitch.
Yeah, that was really heartbreaking, little Mitch.
Tell us why.
Well, he stayed with us it was just so frustrating because he was only 2, and he was so adorable. His mother had abandoned him, and he lived with his... he wasn't his natural father, but he's kind of stuck by this kid, but he was a truck driver and he used to leave Mitch alone. And so when welfare, you know, were alerted to this, they had no choice. They had to take him. And every day that Mitch got older that I had him, I was just like, can't someone... There's so many people who want a baby. Like, can't he be adopted, you know? But, you know, his mother still had, you know, the ultimate say over whether he could... You know, she basically had sentenced him to long-term foster care. And then he kind of nearly had a happy ending, but there's very few happy endings in the foster world. They found his natural grandmother and an auntie in Brisbane. And we packed Mitch up and he was going to be with family and he only lasted 5 days and they said it was too much. And I don't know whatever happened to Mitch, but he was just adorable.
Did you get a chance to see the recent Four Corners documentary about kids growing up in poverty?
I did watch that. It was heartbreaking and heart-rendering.
It was. What struck me was just how self-aware and how bright the children were in that documentary. And I came to the conclusion that, you know, beyond all the governmental support regarding education, you saw all these kids had laptops, they had mobile phones. All they were lacking was inspiration, as far as I was concerned, motivation. And I beg the question, why doesn't somebody take responsibility to send some role models out and tell these kids they can do anything?
Oh, Mark, that's a brilliant idea.
I think we should try and gain some traction there. Tell me, did you have any role models when you decided to be a comic?
Oh, yeah, I did. I had a lovely bloke he died a few years ago. He was a role model to many Australian comics and young men. His name was Dave Grant.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to mentor disadvantaged young blokes, and instead of them, you know, fighting with their fists, it was almost like, get up on stage and fight with your words. He was amazing.
Did he, I mean, obviously through your meteoric rise, you'd have gone through some very high highs and some tragic lows. How did you sustain yourself through that period of time?
You know, it came at a great cost. You know, I've written fairly openly about my alcoholism, and I, you know, rode the highs and rode the lows on the back of a bottle of vodka, you know, and it's just bloody shame. I'd love to go back and...
Well, there's only so much space you can write about your highs and lows on the back of a bottle of vodka, isn't there? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I guess so. I'd just love the opportunity to go back and slap me. I would love to, because I started comedy when I was 27. That's when I had my first real crack at it, and it didn't really work. And then I threw my hat in the ring again when I was 36. But if I had, you know, any advice to give me at 28 would be to do, you know, from the very first time I went on stage, I used booze to give me the courage, you know. And I would love to go back and rewrite that.
Would you?
Yeah.
When did you finally realise, when did that little voice in your mind say, Fiona, you've made it?
Oh, wow. You know, it happens, because making it, you know, I've in many ways, I still don't think I have, you know. It's a game that's filled with, you know, fraught and worry and angst. It's a nerve-wracking business to be in. But I think I came close to, I was on a bus touring Canada, and as a guest, the one international guest on their roadshow, the Just for Laughs roadshow, and we played about 20 cities in 26 days, and we were playing hockey stadiums, you know, so doing shows to 4,000 people plus. And I think that was a fairly extraordinary moment. I did pinch myself a lot in that tour bus, sitting with Jerry Seinfeld's best friend, Tom Popper, and I'm just like, wow, how the hell did I get here?
I nearly had one of those moments. Can I just indulge myself for a minute? I nearly had one of those moments today.
Really?
Yeah, I had cause to go and visit a nursing home, and I'm fairly new to 2UE and 4BC, and I'm walking down the corridor of this nursing home, and this elderly woman came up to me with her arms wide open, a big smile on her face. She said, hello, 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 welcome, welcome, put her arms around me. Then she called, Doreen, come and see who's here. And another woman came up to me and gave me a big hug, and I'm thinking, you know, I've only been here for 5 minutes, for heaven's sake. So I was forced to ask one, and I said, do you know who I am? And Doreen said, no, but if you go over and see the nurse behind the counter, she's good with questions like that. So I'm still asking myself, you've inspired, obviously, one of your children, Biddy O'Loughlin, your daughter. She's
doing stand-up as well.
What were your words of encouragement to her?
Look, I sat in a theatre with her, like she was about to go on in Edinburgh last year, and I was over there doing my show. And I was in the audience, and it's a terrifying thing. Now I think for my mother, oh my gosh, how scary watching your child do this. It's a very dangerous, game of performance. And she did this fabulous show, my daughter, and afterwards, when the show came down, I turned to the people sitting on my left. I couldn't help myself. I turned around to this stranger and I said, she's my daughter. the woman turned back to me and she said, oh, do you travel with her? And I said, no, I'm a comedian as well. I do shows. She said, oh, that's a bit sad. Someone your age riding on their child's coattails.
Dear, oh dear. Now tell me, you've been involved in a few reality television programs in recent times. I mentioned Celebrity Apprentice and Dancing with the Stars. The question I have for you, do you think the persona of the celebrities is well communicated through those programs? In other words, when we're watching those programs, are we seeing the real Dicko or the real Charlotte Dawson or the real Tanya Zieta, or is it very much a contrived production?
Well, I think that with the edits, they can only do so much, to steer it one way or the other. I think they kind of know when they cast them who's going to be the villain and who's, they've got a fair idea. But I think it's very hard to hoodwink the audience. I think I think it'd be about an 80% truth of what you see is what what you're getting is truth.
I recollect you petitioning the Hoff to come over on your side. Now, from what I remember of you, that is the real Fiona.
The Hoff didn't quite know what to make of me because the Hoff's only surrounded by beauties, and all of a sudden he had this strange middle-aged woman approaching him, and I think he thought I was some sort of assistant. It's like, why would a woman like that be talking to me,
Yeah.
Anyway, he was surreal.
And did you enjoy your time on the program?
I did. I really enjoyed Dancing with the Stars. I enjoyed that enormously. People said to me, oh, aren't you nervous? How nerve-wracking. And I thought, no, there's nothing, compared to stand-up, it was a walk in the park because I've never said I was a dancer. So all you can do is do your best. I wasn't as comfortable on Celebrity Apprentice. I kept getting the giggles, because I'd be in that boardroom. I'm like, why is everyone pretending this is a real boardroom? There's no files in that filing cabinet. So I think it was best that I was escorted off the premises, first cab off the rank. I was the first to go. I think the producers knew what they were doing, knocking me out.
Where are you now?
I'm in Melbourne, in Paran, and just loving life and doing what I love to do. I don't love television. I love live stand-up, Unfortunately, you've got to do TV, because you've got to keep your profile up so that people buy tickets and come to your show.
Sure.
But, yeah, I'm really loving this new, I worried for years because I've written 10 one-woman shows now, and I always thought, oh, that'll be the last one. I won't have another one in me. And I've suddenly come to the understanding that so long as you keep breathing in and out and paying attention, it's infinite, Material is like songwriting. There's always a new way to put notes together.
True.
So I'm enjoying not having to worry so much about everything, coming to an end.
Well, can I suggest to everybody listening that if they really want a terrific read and a good belly laugh, and let me tell you, there is a number of very, very funny stories in this book, Fiona, that they do themselves a favour and go out and buy your latest book or your new book or your only book, Fiona O'Loughlin, Me of the Never Never. Where can they find this book? Is it available in all good bookstores?
Yeah, pretty much. And if you have no luck, they're on Amazon.com.
Okay. Fiona O'Loughlin, it's been terrific talking to you this morning.
You're a marvel, Mark.
Thanks for staying up for us.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll talk soon.
See ya.
Bye-bye.